The future belongs to those who dare, those who will do extra. Hi, I'm Mark Croskery. Welcome to Business Live Extra, the program that looks beyond dollars and cents to the movers and shakers in business and the capital markets. Our guest today is widely considered as one of the region's top investment bankers. He holds an MBA in Entrepreneurial Finance from Leuven Management School, Belgium, and an MSc in Economics from the University of West Indies, UE. He completed a one-year executive leadership program at the Wharton School of Business in Pennsylvania, USA. His career started out as an associate director in investment banking in the European debt capital markets. Upon returning to the Caribbean, he held many key and leading roles in regional banks where he used his out-of-the-box thinking to generate game-changing results. Over the last decade, he has raised over US $10 billion in financing for corporates and sovereigns across the regions. Numbers don't lie. Joining us today is Berisford Grey, co-founder and chief executive officer of Sygnus Capital. Beris, welcome to Business Live Extra.
Hi, Mark. Great to see you.
It's great to have you.
Yeah. Thank you.
You know, Beris, that's what everybody calls you.
Yes.
You know, you're looked at as like kind of the king. When I say king, you know, in the alternative investment space. I mean, you've been getting this done on the credit side and all these unique structures, but you've been known for that for a few decades. You know, how do you kind of respond to that, and you know, how do you perceive yourself and Sygnus in the marketplace now?
The king is a very flattering comment. For Sygnus, we see ourselves as merely trying to create a new channel, or working with others, of course, to create a new channel through which capital can be accessed for medium-sized firms across the region, as well as offering investors an alternative investment opportunity for their portfolio. And you know, the way Sygnus see our role is to basically keep pushing, working out with other persons who are interested in alternative investment to really create an ecosystem whereby in the future, you know, alternative investment as an asset class is just as common as, you know, commercial banking or the traditional asset class.
Right. And when we say that, Beris, I mean, you know, you look at a lot of investment banks, you know, not just in Jamaica, but globally, and they really look like they carve out a niche. You know, like Mayberry really got this IPO, or they're on the equity side of the balance sheet. You know, a few other firms have been known for bonds or fixed income. You know, how did you get this idea, let's say, to get into this kind of, you know, credit space or alternative credit space? You know, where did you get this light bulb?
Okay, so maybe I should step back and just speak a little bit about how Sygnus was formed.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, was it just your idea, or was it a group of you?
Yeah, no, so Sygnus was formed, it's a interesting story, which I won't necessarily get into today, but incidentally, my co-founders, Dr. Ike Johnson and Jason Morris, both are very accomplished investment bankers in the region, and predominantly in Jamaica. You know, we all sort of had the same idea in and around the same time, to form a firm that is focused on offering alternative investment. And what does that mean is to look at how do you create access to capital through various creative, customized ways in the region. How do you bring capital in a more flexible way, which is more aligned in many instances with what firms want to do, and how do you create a capital, and I'll use the word habitat. How do you create a set of capital, a pool of capital that will exist in a medium risk to high risk habitat to complement what the traditional banks and the capital markets already do.
And Beris, did all three of you work together, you know, whether it was at a bank or in some capacity before, or just two of you?
Well, Jason and myself worked together at Scotiabank in and around the same time, but Jason and Ike worked together at JMMB and Scotiabank around the same time. You know, they are really close friends and
so there's a long kind of
it's a long relationship. And you know, I knew of Ike from I was at Scotiabank through Jason.
Right. Yeah. And what's so unique with what, you know, you did, you know, and let's say your co-founders and Sygnus is, it's a true entrepreneurial story. When you look at most of the financial sector and the banks, they're coming from, you know, long traditional, you know, let's say conservatism. I mean, did you guys kind of get it started like how George Clooney got his tequila brand started, like a weekend somewhere randomly, socially, and the idea popped up? or how did it really get started?
You really want to hear
especially if it was a fun story.
Yeah, no, it's a fun story. This is how the Sygnus story really started. And it's very similar to George Clooney's story. I was at Crew one Friday evening.
So you weren't in Mexico, but you're still in Jamaica.
I was at Crew having hanging out, having drinks one Friday evening. Yeah. And Jason and Ike were at Crew having drinks as well. And if I remember, I was sitting at the bar, and Jason came in and Ike came in, and then they were sitting and talking about the Sygnus idea, starting a firm, an investment firm. And I was at the bar, and they came over and said, Beres, we are thinking about starting an investment firm. Would you be interested? And I said, yeah, I'm thinking about starting an investment firm as well. And that's how it started. We start sharing ideas, and then we start meet on weekends for at various places. Well, predominantly on weekends at the Mona campus, and flushing out our ideas. We tore up the idea many times. We look at various structures and products, but we land on what is it that the market really needs, which part of the financing space there's a huge gap. And when we look at the data, it was telling us that investors have limited investment opportunities. At the time, most pension funds were probably 90% invested in government of Jamaica paper, and very little corporate bond exposure, and very limited exposure to the the stock market. And on the other hand, medium-sized firms and small businesses has accessibility to only about 27% of loanable funds across the region. So right there's a gap for us to fill. So we start playing with different ideas. We start playing with what you call a high-yield debt fund. Then we sort of work that through. We started playing with a pure mezz fund first, and
so this is kind of nowhere. I mean, although there is a social aspect, a lot of entrepreneurial ideas come into the social aspect. There was an academic or intellectual side, because I mean, two of the co-founders are doctors, right?
No, one is a doctor.
Only one.
Yeah,
okay.
Ike is a doctor.
But right, so he has
Jason
his doctorate.
Jason is a master's in economics.
Okay, and you have your master's as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is that side also, of chemistry between the three of you.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's more than chemistry. We have great friendship and respect for each other. Jason and I work on various committees and different things when I was at Scotia. As I said, Jason and I worked many years at JMMB and Scotia together. So when we connect, all three of us became very close friends, and that's very important, because what that does is allow Sygnus to it's a very unique feature of Sygnus. It allows us, between the three of us, and of course it expands into our team now, to be able to challenge each other's ideas. So you have to come to the table with a very thorough idea, because it's going to be challenged in a respectful way and debated, and then what we said at Sygnus is that the best idea, the idea with the most merit, rise to the top, and everybody shake on it and say,
so a real meritocracy.
Exactly. That's the type of organization
performance driven.
And
I say that is what you're known for in the marketplace in your 5 to 6 years. And Beres, you've been well known for your days at CIBC, Scotia, and the team, but especially you, whether it's a businessman, businesswoman, big firm. If they wanted to get something done in the debt markets, they call Beres. I mean, you built that personal brand. Would you say that also helped create some of this kind of credit structure? Is that why you went with a credit structure, at the beginning of Sygnus, because of your experience in that market?
That helped to a certain extent, but I think the uniqueness why we went, the first thing, why we started our alternative business, that three of us have different skill. I have a very strong investment banking, deal structuring capability. Jason is fund management, economic structure, and Ike is mergers and acquisition as well as fund management. right? So
Okay.
when you combine those three set of skills, and Jason is very strong in terms of economic analysis. Ike is a PhD in economics, so in finance. So he's very thorough in terms of modeling. When you combine all of that, then it allows us to be able to create it allows us to create unbelievable structures. You know, so from this get-go, we were able to combine different skill set. You know, my investment banking skill set with their skill set to really zone in on what is it that the market want. And just to answer more specifically, the reason why we went with the credit structure first is simply that, one, from an alternative investment point of view, credit is the easiest product to understand, and two, from a market needs point of view, the gap, the demand for credit, especially among medium-sized firms, when we did our research, was tremendous. From Jamaica to Trinidad to Bahamas, wherever in the region, this segment of the market weren't able to access the type of customized, flexible capital in terms of that.
And to that point, Beris, you mentioned each, let's say, founder, co-founder skill set. So from the get-go, or early days, was it kind of always a plan to, let's say, have those kind of three, funds or three companies? Was that the goal?
Yeah. So just to give the listeners a little bit of color.
Right, the private equity, real estate, the credit, or was that kind of the get-go goal, or has that evolved?
No, our business plan, and incidentally, we had the opportunity to review our business plan last December.
Okay.
I'm just thinking about the next 5 years. And our business plan has exactly what we have today. It has private credit, it has real estate, and it has private equity.
Beautiful.
It has another fund, but
not announced yet?
Not yet. Yeah, but it has exactly what we wanted to achieve in the first 5 years. The route how we get there were actually very different.
Right.
And actually we get to where we want to be much quicker. Right. But that's part of entrepreneurship.
We're gonna get back to that, and we hope we hear about that magic fund today. We take our first break on Business Dive Extra. We hear all about Sygnus when we return. Welcome back to Business Dive Extra. Sygnus was founded in June of 2016 and will be celebrating 6 years in the industry this year. Sygnus is the Caribbean's leading alternative investment management company spanning private credit, real estate, and private equity. Sygnus Capital Limited is a licensed securities dealer in Jamaica with the Financial Services Commission, FSC. The company is focused on providing clients with independent investment banking, investment management, tax advisory, and advisory services. It is 100% owned by a group of experienced investment bankers and reputable Caribbean entrepreneurs. Their 3 I's are innovation, independence, and integrity. Here with us is Berisford Grey. Beris, co-founder and chief executive officer of Sygnus Capital. Beris, welcome back to Business Dive Extra. Beris, sometimes, even myself, the market may get confused with, Sygnus in the sense that, there's Sygnus Group, the different Sygnus entities we spoke about, and then Sygnus Capital. What is Sygnus Capital in the sense, how does it differentiate from the other Sygnuses?
Okay, there's one Sygnus.
One
really.
Sygnus?
Yeah, the brand Sygnus, right?
Okay.
But you're absolutely right. The market tends to confuse our businesses, our Sygnus Capital with Sygnus Credit Investment, Sygnus the NEB, Sygnus Real Estate Finance. So let me clarify. Sygnus Capital, which is a licensed broker dealer with the FSC, that's basically the manager of the investment companies. So our alternative investment companies, Sygnus Credit Investment, which is listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, Sygnus Real Estate Finance Limited, which is also listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and Sygnus Deneb Investment. These are just investment companies, similar to a mutual fund or other funds, which are really focused on a particular asset class.
Yes.
In order for these funds, I'm using the word funds, in order for these investment companies to execute their job and deliver value for shareholders, they are managed by Sygnus Capital. So Sygnus Capital has all the people, all our team members are there, and they then execute investment strategies on behalf of the various investment vehicles.
So I got it. And in kind of even more simplistic terms, I mean, is Sygnus Capital like a brokerage? Like, can somebody walk in and buy stocks or buy shares, or can it walk in and do like what they may do at, say, who knows, MVL, Burrito, JMB, or is it just kind of like, as you said, a management company? Can a retail investor drop into you?
No. So very good point again. So Sygnus Capital, apart from managing these alternative investment companies, we also offer other services. So we offer investment banking, and investment banking. We have a very strong investment banking practice. We raise a lot of capital, whether it's IPO, APOs, whether it's bond offering, whether it's M&A advisory, that's mergers and acquisition, or whether it's project financing. We raise a lot of capital for companies. We have big clients, some of the big companies listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange are our clients. We raise a lot of bonds for them.
Right.
Medium-sized firms. We help companies to buy or sell each other.
Okay, so you like those buy-sell mandates.
Correct.
Advisory.
That's our M&A advisory. So just to give color, in Sygnus Capital, we have, for example, we have Gregory Samuels, who is well known in the market. He's head of investment banking, so he does all of the debt capital markets and the creative structuring of different deals that you would hear about and see on the market.
Those kind of like billion-dollar deals, couple billion Jamaican dollar deals out there, right?
And Dr. Ike Johnson, he's, as I said before, is an M&A expert, so he leads M&A advisor practice, which also cover our private equity investment platform as well, because M&A and private equity sort of go hand in hand. The skill sets are very close.
And Beris, as a kind of question or a side note, I mean, is it one of the things you think you've done very well, like, let's say, as a leader? I mean, it's hard to retain talent, especially in the financial sector. I mean, by having these different kind of, call it pods or companies, I mean, in a way, has it allowed Sygnus to kind of recognize each person's individual talent and let them kind of fit into their own puzzle and, carry this group forward? I mean, is that a part of kind of the structure inside? There's a structuring skill, and then there's leadership skill, right? But I mean, let's say each company kind of, it's allowed you to kind of put each individual into their zone.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, as a leader, and throughout my career, especially in my latter years at CIBC, I had the opportunity to transition a lot from deal making into leadership. More leadership at a executive level rather than just doing deals, and that allow me to recognize different skill set and also pull myself away from even things that I know, pull myself and allow my team members who are just as skilled or even skilled than I am and more smarter than I am to take different areas and run with them. And the only thing I do is try to sponsor the ideas and help to remove roadblocks. And I will have conversation every day with my team members, whether it's Liz in the wealth business or David in real estate or any one of them, to help them to remove roadblocks or interact with different committees. So that's really important for us, because at Sygnus we trust the talent that we have. We have a very talented team, and we trust them to be creative and also maintain our TRIBE principles, which is independence, integrity, and innovation.
Oh, excellent. And you mentioned the wealth management business. There's not much, let's say, information out there about it. I mean, it is factually a private business, of course, and a discrete business, but you are offering, let's say, wealth management competitively as a service within the Sygnus Group?
So our wealth management is more geared towards high net worth individuals, because we are more advisor than the traditional asset manager. So we basically, our wealth management practice, so to speak, is more advisory. So we advise high net worth individuals on how to optimize value in their portfolio. So it's not the traditional wealth management asset under management, repo, bond trading type of business. It's more an advisory business. And, it fits very well in the Sygnus mantra, where we are really advisors. We are really advisors who help to generate financial solutions, whether it's for corporates or investors.
Yes, and in a way, is it that it kind of almost like latches on where, you sell, let's say, a family's business, or you sell, or a corporate's business, etc., and then really they get some liquidity, and so it just made logical sense for you to get this wealth business?
Yeah, absolutely. Or if it's a situation where, Sygnus is launching, say, a new investment company, whether it's Sygnus Credit Investment, then we can advise our clients that this is a good addition to their portfolio. And, we have seen, that type of benefit to many of our clients.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, great. And you have a tax business as well. I mean, tax advisor.
Absolutely.
That now is a little bit kind of just out of the park. I mean, so new. I mean, tax was always known for, let's say, maybe the big four, KPMG, PwC, etc. So how did that idea now come into play, or into the mix? That's probably one of the most dynamic, I would say, I've kind of seen come out of the Sygnus group.
Yeah, I think the idea of tax is, when you look at alternative investment, where you have businesses or investment company that focus on investing in medium-sized firm using credit, you have real estate investment vehicle like Sygnus Real Estate Finance, and you have a private equity investment company, and you have in that same company, meaning Sygnus Capital, you have or rather the Sygnus Group, you have a investment banking practice, then it's just natural that you can actually put a tax business on that to provide support to all of the different activities that you will be doing. And so the idea of tax is really to service the Sygnus ecosystem, and opportunistically we might service our external client, but we are very much focused on servicing the ecosystem. And we have, of course, external clients who are very strong strategic partner and long-term relationship with us that will ask for tax advisory.
And do you find, does that business stand on its own, like it can have its own independent clients outside of, let's say, Sygnus Capital or so forth?
Absolutely, but we don't really think about our clients that way. Once any touch point of Sygnus that a
holistic?
Then you are a Sygnus client, and your experience should be the same, and you are then exposed to all of our services. Of course, different business line have to maintain different confidentiality because of the nature of the service.
The Chinese wall concept.
Correct. Okay. But at the end of the day, you are a Sygnus client, you are considered a partner within our ecosystem, and you experience a Sygnus difference.
Great to hear. We're going to come back to that. We take another break on Business Dive Extra. More when we return. Welcome back to Business Dive Extra. Sygnus Capital manages Sygnus Credit Investments, SCI, Sygnus Real Estate Finance Limited, SRF, and Sygnus Deneb Investments Limited, SDI. SCI is a pioneering private credit investment company which offers creative debt financing to the middle market businesses across the Caribbean. SCI is listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, the JSE, and is the largest private credit investment company in the English-speaking Caribbean. SRF has recently listed on the JSE and has already reported more than Jamaican 9.9 billion in total assets as at November 30th last year, 2021, for their first quarter. SDI remains private and has been making private opportunistic acquisitions in the Eastern Caribbean. To tell us more is Berisford Grey, co-founder and CEO of Sygnus Capital. Beris, welcome back.
Thank you, Mark.
It's when you really think about it, this whole alternative space. If you break it down a little bit more, what does alternative really mean to, yourself and to the team at Sygnus?
Right. and to the wider market, I would say.
Well, of course, of course.
Yeah. So the easiest way to explain alternative investment is to start by defining traditional. Traditional investment, as we all know, is public equities. For example, the Jamaica Stock Exchange offer traditional investment. You can buy publicly traded stock. You have bonds, which you and I are familiar with, where companies issue bonds or notes in the debt capital markets. And of course, you have probably in the Caribbean the largest traditional investment, which is bank financing, right? So bank typically represent a large part of every financing ecosystem. So that's the traditional side. The alternative is now different forms of financing, generally speaking, non-traded, non-public financing. And when you think about alternative, what you're thinking about is mostly credit, which are non-bank credit, I'll put another way, non-bank loan products, right? And you have that being done through various forms of investment vehicles. When you talk about equities, in the traditional space, you have the public market, you have the private equity market, basically meaning capital and investors are invested in non-listed entities most of the time in order to help them grow, versus doing an IPO and listing your shares to raise capital, which is a traditional way. And of course, real estate financing, you're talking about either real estate financing in the form of value-added funds, meaning you're buying and developing your property yourself, taking the risk or de-risking it, or in some instances, you form real estate investment trusts. All of these are typically alternative to the traditional bond or equity capital markets.
No, and it makes sense. And if we said it a different way, Beres, like just to say, I'm a farmer, or I'm a businessman, don't have much experience in the financial markets. And I said, okay, traditional is I'm going to buy like some NCB shares or Scotia shares. I just know what they are.
Yes.
And, one of the things we are experiencing in the Jamaica Stock Exchange, is anything that is kind of like a investment company or quasi-fund company, like, you look at Sagicor Select Funds, QWI Investments, even some of the Sygnuses that say, the earnings have been really good. But the average guy, the average lady out there just don't seem to understand them, so they're not buying them. Your job is not to manage the stock price, but it just seems they're struggling to identify with them. What do you think, say, whether it's the financial advisors, the market can do better, or when do you think Jamaica will kind of change to like what the US went through with mutual funds, or to kind of, get the market to understand these, quasi-mutual funds or investment companies, and whatever you call them as well?
Yeah. No, I think for me, I have a very long-term view on investment and investment strategies. And similarly, I have a very long-term view on alternative investment, which is what we do. I think the market, let's take alternative investment, for example. It's really coming to life in Jamaica over the last 5 years.
Okay.
And I think
like it's just started.
Yeah, it just started. It's very, very young. So there are two sides to that. The first side, which is really the pessimistic side, is that, okay, I don't understand this, and I don't really know what this is, and so forth, and this could be very risky, right? So we need the brokers and market participants like myself and others to articulate clearly what these represent. What is a private credit company, for example? It's a company that basically make loans or bonds or debt credit to other companies, corporates, and that is pooled together, generate profit, and then we distribute that back to shareholders. So, when you take a firm like Sygnus Credit Investment that year after year is making records profit, within 4 years it made $5 million worth of profit, and the stock price is sort of languishing, even though we pay out, the dividend yield is 5.5%, about 5% USD, which is very attractive. You really realize that there's a gap in the market in terms of understanding the opportunity.
Because a guy is still not walking into a brokerage and saying, give me some Sygnus, or give me some, ABC, but they still buy a Grace, or something they can feel.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then the other part to this then is the optimistic perspective, which is if you are if an industry just started and is showing great velocity of growth and is really solving a big problem, in the case of alternatives, you are really creating a new channel through which capital can flow, whether it's private equity, real estate, or it is private credit. Then it means that the runway and the growth prospect is tremendous.
Yes.
So if you take a long-term view on this investment, then you should actually be taking a very strong, long position, so to speak, in these opportunities, because the runway is very long. And most importantly, and this is more for investors, diversification is very important to any investment portfolio. The pandemic has shown us that if you are not diversified, even as a business, if you're not diversified, as an investor, if you're not diversified, then you really run the risk of being severely hit by volatility.
Sure.
So alternative investment and all these different type of products allow investors to diversify. So you don't have to go big into any one sector or area, but you need to think about adding alternatives, which is what is happening in the international market.
Absolutely.
While, for example, over the last 5 years, and just to share with the listeners, over the last 5 years, the growth in alternative investment has outpaced traditional, and the amount of capital flowing from pension funds, high net worth individuals, and investors generally into alternative has been growing close to 9%.
And on that point, Beres, how do you view our current kind of pension fund legislation here in Jamaica? Do you feel the limits, it's always a point every few years, but do you feel the limits should be increased for some exposure into, say, alternatives?
Yes, without a doubt. Globally, so let me put alternatives in context.
What's it in the U.S.?
Yeah, roughly in the U.S., I'm not sure what the limits are, but they probably don't even have it per se. But I know for sure that globally pension funds account for more than maybe 20% or close to that of capital capital allocated to alternative investment is pension funds is way up there, probably like 40% of the capital that the alternative manager has under management is from pension fund, 40–50%. But in pension funds portfolio, I think based on my last research, pension funds were on average 10% plus or more, and that's growing by about 8% per annum in terms of increase in allocation to alternative. That's happened over the last 5 years.
Right. And a fact, though, is that, Sygnus and other alternatives, you are allowing Jamaican pension fund managers who just can't keep buying the blue chips, Grace, Carreras, the names, because they're over-concentrated there. You have given them an alternative for their portfolios.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty, and that's what we are solving, right? As I said, as a business, you have to solve a real societal problem. And the societal problem that we are solving is capital accessibility on the one hand, right, and investment product diversity on the other. And so when you combine both of those...
You think you're solving an inflation hedge for the pension liabilities long term also?
Well, effectively, when we offer pension funds real estate investment in a value-added fund like Sygnus Real Estate Finance that is going to develop and then de-risk a property and then sell it to pension funds. Yes, we are solving that problem. Sygnus Credit Investment that offer pension funds and investors to invest in a business that has probably at the moment...
Because really then a pension manager doesn't have to go and buy 20 property titles in a townhouse scheme.
Correct.
They can be much more efficient than just buy on the stock market.
Absolutely.
Right.
So we are solving that problems, and all the players in the industries are really trying to solve that.
So really, a pension fund can buy the share price.
Yeah, they can buy the stock.
The stock.
They can do two things. They can buy, for example, Sygnus Real Estate Finance stock on the market, or they can actually buy into a development or buy a development.
Understood.
By Sygnus Real Estate Finance. And we have done that. For example, one of our recent developments that we did, we basically de-risk it and sell it to pension funds who will then hold it for 10 years.
We're going to get to that point. Great point. We take another break on Business Live Extra. More with Berisford Grey, co-founder, CEO, Sygnus Capital, when we return. Welcome back to Business Eye Extra. Sygnus Credit Investments, SCI, reported US $87 million in total assets as at their last audited financial results, June last year, 2021. Since then, SCI has surpassed US $100 million based on their latest quarterly report, hitting US $110 million in total assets as at December 31st. Last year, 2021. The company acquired a private credit entity in Puerto Rico, Accrescent Financial Corporation, as part of their expansion plans via a subsidiary, SCI Puerto Rico, Inc. What are Sygnus Group's plans with this recent expansion into the U.S. territory? Are there more deals like this on the table for Sygnus Group? And what is Sygnus's long-term outlook? Back with us for our final time is Berisford Grey, co-founder and chief executive officer of Sygnus Capital, to tell us all we need to know. Beris, it's been good having you. Yeah. You know, if we touch base just, a little bit on SCI, how big could this thing really get? You're at 110 million US now. It focuses on the middle market. How big is the middle market to keep finding quality deals 5-6 years later? Could this thing get to $1 billion, $500 million? How big could this really get?
Well, in my view, I think, and I'm just throwing out numbers, I think SCI can easily get to $500 million in the near term.
Jamaica alone, or?
No, not Jamaica alone. I'm talking, SCI operate across the region.
Okay.
We have deployed capital in Bahamas, Cayman, St. Lucia, the Dutch Caribbean, right across the region. So, if you look at the demand for credit and mid-sized companies and so forth across the region, and we're not talking about the Spanish-speaking, we're just talking about the Dutch and the English-speaking Caribbean at the moment. When you're talking about Spanish-speaking or wider market, we think that SCI can get to $500 million in the medium term.
Okay, and this recent Puerto Rico deal that you're going to be doing through the subsidiary, is that actually in SCI? Yeah. Or is that outside of SCI?
No, that's in SCI. So SCI, Sygnus Credit Investment, basically acquire another private credit company in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
So it basically invests by acquiring 93.66% of Accrescent, which is another private credit company in Puerto Rico, which has been around for 18 years.
And Beris, have those numbers reflected yet in the results, or is that going to give you another big jump in total assets?
No, those numbers will not be reflected in SCI results.
Okay.
I think the way we have designed it might not. We have designed it as an investment rather than
so versus consolidating up.
Correct.
The assets, etc.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But when you look at the combined private credit platform that Sygnus will manage with this acquisition, it's going to be by far the largest private credit platform in the Caribbean. What I'm saying is that when you're Accrescent currently now between asset under administration and their own balance sheet,
yes,
as about 150 plus 70, roughly $210 million. So when you combine that with SCI at 110, you are talking about a private credit of roughly 320 million.
Wow.
Right? Okay. So that's what the story is now. Of course, from our promise to shareholders of SCI, we had made certain promises 2 years ago that in 3 years' time, SCI would get to 100 million. That was the goal at the start of COVID. Mm-hmm. Of course, we get to 110.
Yes.
As of the last 6 months. So we have actually gone beyond the 100 million.
Yes.
And then, of course, with their investment...
you've hit that milestone.
Correct.
You're on to the next milestone now.
Correct. So with their investment in Accrescent, what Accrescent offered to SCI shareholder is basically a platform from which to pivot into the English-speaking Caribbean to basically grow the private credit business in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a $100 billion economy. Mm-hmm. Jamaica is a $16 billion economy. Mm-hmm. Right? So Puerto Rico is Puerto Puerto Rico is larger than the combined English-speaking and Dutch-speaking Caribbean in terms of GDP, if you add up all of them.
Yes.
So in one market, we will be able to scale at an accelerated rate relative to the rate we could have scaled across the other Caribbean markets. So what that does is that when you scale, it offers two things for shareholders. One, it increased profitability at a faster rate, bigger numbers, bigger profitability, the capacity to pay bigger dividends to shareholder. Two, it give SCI access to private credit opportunities in industries that we would not have access to. For example, Puerto Rico has a very large pharmaceutical industry, very large life science, very large healthcare
So you get
industry.
into geography, diversification, and sectors.
And sector, and Accrescent is already a player, a big player in those
going
industries.
concern there.
Correct.
Everything.
And the other important thing that this acquisition offer is that we now have access to the North American market, especially for fundraising.
Because of the U.S. territory.
Because it's a U.S. territory. Puerto Rico, as everyone is aware,
it's hot right now.
It's just coming. Well, it's just coming out of default. So it's basically restructures its debt.
Yes.
And a huge debt write-off, and liquidity it's awash with liquidity.
Yes.
The banking and financial sector is very strong in terms of capital and capital adequacy, and a lot of good companies are there that are underserved, because just like when we went through our financial crisis, what would happen is that credit scaled back. So a lot of good companies could not access credit.
So you're really getting in at the ground floor at the right time.
Exactly.
Maybe lower interest rates to come.
Interest rate is also very low. That's why capital raising in that space and the mainland is a very important
and Beres,
part
jump
of our
into
strategy.
SRF, right?
Yes.
I mean, one of your most prevalent announcements, or let's say deals, is this Belmont Road project.
Yes,
absolutely. I mean, what's the exposure like of that to the overall SRF? Is that the majority of it, or do you have a lot of plays out there when you look at the the 9.9 billion asset exposure?
No, I think, so we operate with what you call different limits. So, so apart from all the growth stories that the market are wanting to hear about Sygnus, Sygnus is a very institutional, robust organization, and we started that from day one with a lot of independence, a lot of policies. People are amazed when they interact with us to do business at the level of diligence that we do,
of course,
but yet deliver with speed.
Right.
So we have a very robust risk management strategy around single asset, group limits and asset and all of those type of things. So we measure things, to make sure that we're not overexposed. So to answer you, in case of SRF, Belmont is just an asset that doesn't breach any real exposure limit from a single asset.
Right.
Or sector limit per se.
Got you.
The important thing with that asset, though, is that the development is going very, very, very good. And
when you slated to, when's the target date to kind of wrap that one up for?
Yeah, that one is slated to be completed by around May 2023.
Okay.
Yeah, right. And it's going very good. And I would say that we have about 60% of we have 60% of the building already under contract.
Amazing.
And we have soft demand or letter of intent for another the rest. So we are very confident that by the time we reach 50% or 60%, we should be almost fully let.
And Beres, the NEB, we know that one has done a lot of deals in the Eastern Caribbean. We've seen some of them in the media, but I mean, anything in Jamaica, or is it kind of more focused on the Eastern Caribbean, or any kind of PE deals on the Jamaica side or near to Jamaica? Yeah,
Deneb is not really the Eastern Caribbean, in the Dutch Caribbean. So Deneb major acquisition has been a very profitable and long-standing business in the Dutch Caribbean, where we acquire 40%. As you recall, Deneb was launched in January 2020.
Very recently, yeah.
Yeah, and COVID started in March.
Right.
So we had a number of opportunities on the table to invest in. But being prudent investors, you know, when a black swan event happen and you recognize the degree of risk that this could create in the economy, you have to take a strategy where your first priority is to preserve capital. You know, so when COVID came around, our first priority was to preserve capital, protect our portfolio companies, focus on working with them to survive the pandemic.
You held tight.
Correct, because we did not
taking
know
the equity side risk.
Right, correct.
Okay.
We know that there will be opportunities evolving.
Are you back out there now?
No,
not yet.
The great point I want to make is that by taking that strategy, we protect our portfolio company and we protect investors' capital.
Yes.
But what that has allowed NEB to do is to observe the impact of COVID and the evolution of the market over the last 2 years. And now we have tremendous number of deals. DENEB is going to, you know, right now DENEB is going to be closing another investment by the end of April. And we have probably 3 more investments working on to close.
DENEB's wallet is open now.
DENEB wallet is open.
You're ready?
We are ready.
Your dry powder?
Dry powder is ready to, to be deployed.
And Barry, just quickly, outlook. Sygnus, where you want to be 5 years, you do it, I don't know, do you sell in 5 years to a big bank, you do a big deal, something global, or this is just a start?
Well, from our point of view, you know, we are at the start of our mission. You know, we have done our first 5 years and it has, you know, it has gone tremendously well. We are a very ambitious firm, a very ambitious group of entrepreneurs, and we really are passionate about what is it that our duty is. And our duty is very simple. Our duty and vision is to really help to drive the velocity of economic growth across the region by providing non-traditional or alternative financing solutions. So we see our job as really pushing the space of alternative investment so that in the long term, if you are in Trinidad, in Puerto Rico, DAMREP, you know, the Dutch Caribbean, and you are having a conversation around alternative investment, people understand what that means. Investors, pension fund, high net worth individuals, the average person understand what that means and want to participate in the industry.
Yes.
If you are on the other side where you're using capital, you're corporate, you know that, you know, to complement your traditional financing, you can access alternative financing through Sygnus or other alternative manager. So we really focus on building out that ecosystem. As far as Sygnus is concerned, you know, what we are focused on strategically is to grow our 3 alternative investment platform, you know, Sygnus Credit Investment, which already made its first acquisition outside of Jamaica, grow Sygnus Real Estate, that is doing, you know, excellent, and grow DENEB, which is also doing excellent, and then complement that core business with our strong investment banking practice, as well as our tax advisory and
put it all together.
Beres,
thank you very much. It's great having you today. You know, I mean, you guys are young guys doing super well, and Sygnus just doing super well overall.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Together. And it's, as you said, it's early days, and you guys have a really bright future.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us on Business Dive Extra. It's great having you, Beres.
Good stuff.
Berisford Grey.
Thank you.
Yep. That's it for another edition of Business Dive Extra. Remember, successful investing is about managing risks, not avoiding it. We've been talking with Berisford Grey, Beris Grey, co-founder and CEO of Sygnus Capital. Don't forget, you can watch us online at cvm.com/videos/Business Dive Extra. Thanks for joining us.